The thunder of mercy when Peter asked Jesus, "Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother who sins against me? Up to 7 times." He was reaching for nobility. 7 was sacred, complete, divine. But Jesus turned the sacred into the infinite. I tell you, not 7 times, but 70 times 7. It was not a number. It was a detonation. A divine explosion that shattered every human concept of justice and limit. In that moment, heaven spoke with lightning clarity. Forgiveness is not a transaction, it is a state of being, the very rhythm of God's own heart. This was not a call to weakness, it was a call to resurrection, to rise above vengeance, above fairness, above the endless arithmetic of pain. For in the kingdom of heaven, mercy is not mathematics. It is fire, the arithmetic of heaven too. Forgive 70 times 7 is to stop counting. It is to break, free from the ledger of offense and debt that chains the human spirit. Every grudge is a stone tied to the soul. Every resentment, a lock on the heart. Jesus commands us to drop the stones again and again, until the hands are finally empty. The arithmetic of heaven does not measure wrongs. It multiplies grace. It does not balance accounts. It erases them. We are trained by the world to remember every slight, but God's math works differently. 1 act of mercy cancels 70 acts of pain. 1 heart that forgives becomes the mirror of the divine. The scandal of forgiveness is the most scandalous thing about Christianity. It defies logic, burns pride, and offends justice. It is unfair, gloriously, divinely unfair to the human heart. It feels wrong to forgive the unforgivable, but to the divine heart, it is the only way to heal what is broken. Forgiveness is not denial. It does not erase evil. It simply refuses to let evil define the final word. Jesus did not call us to forgive because the offender deserves it. He called us to forgive because we deserve peace, and peace cannot exist where vengeance is end to the shock of truth. Unforgiveness is self-imprisonment disguised as justice. Every time you refuse to forgive, you chain yourself to the wound. The cross as the ultimate equation. The cross is where heaven's arithmetic reached its divine sum. Every wound, every betrayal, every cruelty of mankind converged upon one man, and he forgave, not once, not 7 times, but infinitely. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He said this not at the end of pain, but in the middle of it, not after the nails were removed, but while they tore through his flesh. Forgiveness in the fire, mercy in the moment of murder at Calvary. Jesus revealed what 70 times 7 truly means. There is no limit to love that bleeds. No exhaustion in compassion that dies for the unworthy. The cross is not only a symbol of suffering, it is the throne of forgiveness, the human heart, a battlefield of mercy. We all want justice, until justice turns its eyes toward us. We all demand fairness, until we need grace. The human heart is a battlefield where 2 voices war. One says, "They must pay." The other whispers, "You are free when you forgive." To forgive 70 times 7 times is not to ignore pain, but to transform it. Pain, when forgiven, becomes power. Bitterness, when surrendered, becomes blessing, and the soul, once shattered, becomes a sanctuary of light. Jesus did not teach us to be doormats. He taught us to be rebuilders of worlds. Forgiveness is divine rebellion, the revolution of love against the tyranny of hatred. The chains we call justice we often mistake vengeance for strength, but vengeance is merely grief in armor. It looks powerful, but it is built from fear. When you hold on to anger, you are serving your enemy's ghost. You replay the wound, polish the memory, worship the pain. It becomes your idol. Your God becomes the one who hurt you. And so, Jesus spoke the most liberating truth. Forgive, not to excuse, not to forget, but to reclaim your freedom. Forgiveness is not about them. It is about you returning to yourself, to the image of God you were created in. Before resentment rewrote your face, the forgiven forgive you cannot give what you have never received, and you cannot forgive if you have not first been forgiven. Jesus ties our forgiveness of others to our own. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. It is not a condition, it is a mirror. How you forgive is how you understand God's mercy. If your mercy is small, your image of God is small. If your heart is generous, your God is infinite. Every act of forgiveness is a confession of faith that mercy is stronger than memory and love deeper than loss. The death of the ego forgiveness always feels like dying, and it is. It is the crucifixion of the ego, the execution of pride. The self that demands revenge cannot survive mercy. When you forgive, something in you dies, the part that needed to be right, to be superior, to hold power. But what is born in its place is divine. Peace that passes understanding. To forgive 70 times 7 times is to practice dying before you die, to let go so completely that nothing can own you again, not even pain, that is resurrection living, to walk the earth unchained, bearing the fragrance of heaven. The weight of unforgiveness in forgiveness is invisible gravity. It drags the soul downward, bends the spine, darkens the eyes. You can feel it in the body, the tightness of resentment, the heat of anger, the fatigue of hate. Forgiveness is light, literally light. It lifts, opens, expands. Those who forgive often look younger, walk freer, breathe easier, because forgiveness is not sentiment. It is spiritual physics. It realigns the heart to the rhythm of divine energy. Jesus understood what science would one day confirm, that bitterness poisons the vessel that carries it. To forgive 70 times. 7 times is to detoxify the soul. The mystery of infinite compassion. How can one forgive endlessly? Because forgiveness is not drawn from the human reservoir. It is drawn from God Himself. We forgive not from strength, but through surrender. When you forgive, you become a channel of the divine. The current of God's mercy flows through you, washing both you and your enemy in the same grace. Every time you forgive, you taste eternity. You participate in the ongoing heartbeat of God, the eternal rhythm of creation, destruction and renewal. That is why Jesus said, 70 times 7, not to tire you, but to train you, to teach you the language of heaven. Forgiveness without end. The forgiveness that transforms the world does not change through laws or wars. It changes when hearts surrender their hatred. History's greatest revolutions were not political. They were spiritual. Nelson Mandela forgave his captors, and South Africa breathed again. Martin Luther King Jr. preached love in the face of violence, and America trembled toward redemption. Jesus forgave from the cross, and the universe itself was remade. Forgiveness is the nuclear power of the Spirit. It turns enemies into brothers, chains into bridges, and wounds into witnesses. One act of true forgiveness is worth more than 1,000 sermons, because in that moment, heaven invades earth. The mirror of the Master Jesus did not teach forgiveness from a throne, he lived it from a cross, and that cross is still reflected in the eyes of every soul who dares to forgive. When it hurts most, every time you forgive, you become like him. You join his heartbeat. You echo his last breath. Father, forgive them. That whisper still reshapes galaxies. The shock of truth. To forgive 70 times 7 times is to become the image of God himself. To hold infinite compassion inside a finite frame. The ocean of mercy picture. The sea, vast, endless, unmeasured. That is the mercy of God. Our sins are pebbles, dropped into it, swallowed, forgotten, lost in light. When you forgive, you let that ocean rise within you. You become part of the tide that cleanses the world. Forgiveness is not passive. It is creation itself. Every time you release someone, a new universe begins. Heaven expands, and the walls of hell collapse a little more. The shock of forgiveness. Forgiveness is not soft. It is nuclear. It detonates the structures of revenge, dissolves the architecture of pride. It burns everything false until only love remains. The reason Jesus' words shock us is because they demand divinity from humanity. They demand that we stop being merely human and become vessels of the eternal. That is the true revolution of Christ, the transformation of suffering into sacred fire. To forgive 70 times 7 times is to become unstoppable love. And unstoppable love is what heaven looks like when it walks the earth. The final liberation. Forgiveness is the last door. When you walk through it, nothing can touch you anymore. You become untouchable, not because you are invincible, but because you are undefended. The soul that forgives everything fears nothing. It carries no wounds, only scars that shine. It walks among enemies and calls them brothers. It bleeds and blesses at the same time. That is heaven's paradox. The freer you forgive, the less the world can harm you. The more you love, the less you lose. The infinite returning, the end. All forgiveness is circular. The mercy you give returns to you, pressed down and overflowing. The grace you release becomes the air you breathe. The world runs on reciprocity, tit for tat, debt for debt, but heaven runs on forgiveness, grace for grace, mercy for mercy. When you forgive 70 times 7 times, you join the eternal flow. You stop fighting against the river and start swimming in it, and the river is God. Epilogue. The heart without count. Someday, you will stand before God, heart open, hands empty, and he will not ask how many times you were wronged. He will ask how many times you became like him. The soul that forgave endlessly will shine with his own light, because forgiveness is not a command, it is communion. It is the moment when the human heart and the divine heart beat as one, and so Jesus' words still echo through eternity, breaking pride, healing wounds, reshaping worlds. Forgive 70 times 7 times, for in the end, there is only one law in heaven, and it is mercy.